Alright, so now we're on to page 2 of the Painting Station Skill Builder, and this time we're going to use Tempera. We'll be using the squeeze bottle Tempera that's on the counter. Now I've brought the squeeze bottles to my station here, but you will leave them at the counter and get what you need at the counter before you take it back to your seat. So again, you're not going to be painting directly on these pages. I'm going to have some paper that's cut to the size to glue right down onto your skill building page. So the first thing you need to do is write your name on the back of all of these. So all 3 of these, you'll write your name 3 times. And so we're going to start with the tents. So a tent is when you mix white with a color, and it wants you to create 5 different tents. So I'm going to get one of my strips. I'm going to move my skill building, my art studio sketchbook aside. I'm going to get a little bit of white, because it's just a small amount that I need for this small area to paint. So don't fill up this divot completely full, because that's just wasteful. And then I'm going to use this magenta color. And again, I'm not filling up the divot. Okay, and I have a sponge here so that I can dry my paintbrush off, because when you're using liquid tempera, you don't want a wet paintbrush, because then the liquid tempera looks like watercolor. If we wanted it to look like watercolor, we would use watercolor. So I'm drying my paintbrush off. I'm just pulling it across the edge of the sponge, the top of the spongy part, not the scrubby part. And you can go light to dark, dark to light, whatever you like to do. I'm going to just scoop up just a little bit of this magenta and mix it around with this white. And this will be my lightest tint, and it will gradually get darker as I add more and more magenta. So I want to mix this up completely and not see any swirls of magenta in there or swirls of white. And then I'm going to paint one space with this light tint. And remember, I have to do 5, so I need to do 1 in the middle, 2 on one side, 2 on the other. So I don't need to rinse my paintbrush off, because I'm just adding more and getting it darker. So now I'm going to scoop up some more magenta, mix it around. Make sure I don't have any little swirls, so I got to mix it completely so I don't have any swirls of this color or the magenta, that it's mixed completely. And then I paint that next to it, and there should be a change. You should be able to see a change in the colors. So now I scoop up some more magenta, mix it around till it's no longer swirly. It's a nice solid color. I can pull my paintbrush across the edge of the divot to squeeze out any paint that's inside the bristles to mix that in there. And then this would be my middle color. Scoop up some more magenta. I only have 2 more that I need to make, because I have to make a total of 5. So I could scoop up half of what's left here of the magenta, mix that in. And finally the remainder of the magenta over into this space and mix it around. So all 5 should look clearly different, and they do. So I have met this skill builder. So now I'm going to rinse my paintbrush off, because you don't want white in it when you do your next skill builder. So you're going to rinse it off. I use the teeth at the bottom of the water basin to help. You're going to dry it off on the sponge. Then you're going to take this skill builder and set it aside. If you have a paper towel, wipe up your area. I didn't get much on there. And then you're going to do your second skill builder. Your second skill builder is to create 5 shades, and shades are where you add black to a color. So you're not going to change your color. You're going to use the same color that you used for your tints. You're going to use for your shades. So this time I'm going to get magenta in a new space. Now I won't use this magenta over here because it's got white mixed with it. And we're not mixing white, black, and your color, ever, because it just looks ugly. It's like a grayish color. So you will only mix white with your color or only black with your color. So the great thing about doing shades is you hardly need any black to make a change. So you don't need to squirt out a lot of black onto your oval, your mixing tray. And also remember, you don't want to fill this divot full, because that would just be wasteful. And you have to create 5 again. So I'm going to, this time, instead of putting my magenta into my black, I'm going to add just a little bit of black to my magenta. Now you could go back and do magenta to black if you want, like I did magenta to white, do magenta to black. It's completely up to you. But I'm just going to do a little bit of black, and so that'll be your first shade. So then I'll scoop up some more black. And the shades might be a little tricky for you, trying to get them to look different. And you can see the magenta changes to a nice purple when you add the black to it. And that sometimes happens, like when you're using black and orange, the orange kind of turns brownish. And when you're using yellow and black, the yellow turns greenish. So that does happen, and that doesn't mean you did anything wrong. That just means that's what that color looks like when you add black to it. And remember that each one of these needs to look different, and so far I'm doing a pretty good job of that. Now I only need two left, 2 spaces left, so I'm going to take half of the black that's left over, mix that around over here. Yeah, it's a gradual change between those two, but there is a change. So there is my shade scale builder. So I'm going to set this aside, rinse my paintbrush off completely. So I use the teeth at the bottom of the water basin, dry my paintbrush off completely. All right, and my final scale builder with Tempera is to create a color wheel. And when I create this color wheel, I'm only going to use the primary colors, red, yellow, and blue. And I'm going to mix violet, orange, and green, the secondary colors. So I'm going to turn my mixing tray. And again, I'm going to put a small amount of yellow, not filling the divot. I'm going to skip a space, a small amount of red, a small amount of blue. So the first thing that I'm going to do on my square is I'm going to put some yellow. I'm going to paint my red, like the corners of a triangle. This is the top of the triangle, the right side of the triangle. Rinse my paintbrush off so that this is a nice, rich, deep color. If I leave a lot of water in my paintbrush, this looks runny and looks like watercolor, but this is a nice, rich color. So now I'm going to mix red and blue together to get violet. So I'm going to take some of my blue, put it over here in one divot, rinse my paintbrush off because I don't want to mess up the red just yet because I'm going to need it later. So rinse my paintbrush off, dry my paintbrush off, scoop up some red, move that over and mix it around. And so I know violet goes between red and blue because red and blue mixed together make violet. So there's violet. And now I'm going to scoop some yellow over here. Touch of red. This time I don't have to rinse my paintbrush off because I'm not going to need red again. So just a touch of red, mix it around to make orange. And that goes between yellow and red because red and yellow mixed together make orange. And finally, I'm going to mix yellow and blue together. So I don't need any more yellow after this, so I'm just going to take a smidge of blue and mix it with the yellow over here to make green. And there I have finished my 3 scale builders. So I'm going to get a scrap piece of paper from the Free Time Center, Free Time paper. And then I'm going to set my scale builders onto this paper very carefully without them touching or flipping. And then I'm going to put this paper on the drying rack to dry. I'll wipe off the placemat, put my sponge back in the cabinet, my blue placemat back in the cabinet. Water basin will get poured out and put upside down on the black towel, and then this you're going to run under the faucet, and you don't want to turn the faucet on full blast or make this big enormous mess. And what you'll do is while your water is pouring over this, you'll take your paintbrush and you'll wiggle it around in each of these divots to clean this off completely. So when this is cleaned completely, you don't see any of your paint along the edges either. So sometimes we kind of get a little messy and the paint kind of sloshes out and drips on the edges. So make sure you get the edges, make sure you get the back, get that completely cleaned off, and then you'll stand that up in the dish strainer on the black towel to dry. Okay, and so now that your painting tempera pieces are finished, you're going to glue these down. If they curled up on you, if they're curling up, then you want to kind of pull and curl them down to flatten them out a little bit. And I just like to take my finger and pull underneath. And then you're going to do a frame of glue, just like your previous page, but do it inside the rectangle. You're going to glue your tints down. try not to cover up the words. And I did get a little bit of glue squirting out the side here, so I'm going to get a paper towel and wipe that up. Then another frame of glue. Now these have the order that they want them in, and I didn't paint mine that same way. So it's okay if yours isn't in this exact order that's listed in the sketchbook, as long as you have them in the correct order here. So like for instance, yellow, I could put the yellow there, but then orange is here instead of the green. So I kind of flip-flop those, but they are in the correct order. So I'm just going to glue this down like this, right over the top of that color wheel. I'm going to scoot it down a little bit. And you know what? Since red is marked at the top here, maybe I'll turn this and put red up by the top. But honestly, it doesn't matter. Alright, and then once these are glued in, you're going to bring this to me, and I'm going to sign off on it so that you can move on to the next skill builder or create a new piece using the painting station.